All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is the NBA Tournament Strategy Show where we look at last night's slate, see what went well, what might not have gone as well. Then we kind of go game by game, brainstorm this slate. And then on the pre-lock show, which is at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, we talk about leverage plays, core plays, guys we're going over on, and really just how we're going to use the domination station on that slate. Um, and so yeah, that's the plan. Let's go ahead and look at last night's slate. This was the $100,000 winning lineup. And all in all, we got a good bit right here. For me personally, I had a solid night. Not like the greatest of wins, not extremely profitable, but you made a couple dollars, which is fine. So nothing to go too crazy about. I think my biggest mistake yesterday was probably just kind of having that Portland value, like Eubanks and Little. They did not come through for us, but we had a lot of other things go well. We had plenty of Javion Carter, so that panned out. Emmanuel Quickly was a core play, so we were well over the field on him. I think that Quickly exposure is really what kind of helped me stay afloat, thankfully. Chris Middleton was a core play, I believe, or close to it. Maybe not a core play, but we were well over the field on him. Bobby Portis, we had a lot of, so that wasn't a problem. Nikola Jokic, we had men on, so we were around field weight exposure to him. Maxey made a lot of sense once James Harden was out. I think everyone kind of knew what to do there. And then when it comes to Grimes is the guy that I wish I had more exposure to. The last time Brunson was out, we had Grimes as a core play, and he crushed for us. But for some reason, in my head, all I could think of was Quickly and Barrett and Randall. I didn't have too much of Randall, but I did boost Barrett a little bit. But Grimes, he was our bread and butter early on. We really should have been prepared for that. Hate that I forgot about him, but he made a lot of sense. And then Paul Reed, no one was playing because he wasn't the starter last night, and he kind of came through. I had him in a few lines, but not enough. So fine slate. We got a lot right. Wish we could have avoided some of the Portland bad values. So happens. Got to move on. Let's look at today's slate. Hopefully get some good vibes going, and we can make it another good one. So let's see. Starting off, we have the Boston Celtics. To be honest, guys, this is one of those slates where we have some interesting injury news. We have some value, but could use a little bit of spice, in my opinion. But like I said, starting off, the Celtics are pretty healthy. Only Gallinari's out still, and he's been out forever. Tatum's playing tonight, so nothing too crazy here. I think Tatum's probably the guy that I'm the most interested in. With everyone else being healthy, no one else is really standing out for me too much, unfortunately. If Robert Williams made a surprise start, he would be more viable, but I'm not really expecting that to happen. He's been coming off the bench here lately. Next up, we have the Wizards. We do have a good amount of interesting potential news here that could really shake up the slate. We already know Bradley Beal and Kyle Kuzma are out. That's kind of boring. Everyone's kind of pretty much priced appropriately for that situation. But what could have a dramatic impact on this slate is if Monty Morris and Daniel Gafford end up being out. If Morris is out, we are going to have more value guards outside of just Tyus Jones. That would be a boost to guys like Wright, Delon Wright. Jordan Goodwin would be a bit more viable. Even potentially Johnny Davis. I don't really want to play Davis, but I'll be okay with a little bit of ownership. He has an extremely low usage rate. He is not someone you really want to be excited about playing, but he's a viable option if Monty Morris is out. If Daniel Gafford ends up being out, we could see them try and play a little bit small tonight, which would be interesting to see. But I have a lot of interest in this team potentially if we miss Gafford or Morris. Um, of course, if Gafford was out, everyone's already playing a lot of Porzingis tonight. I would be willing to play even more if Gafford was missing tonight. Really stabilize his like rebounding percentage, his usage increases, all the obvious things. And then Denny Avdija is obviously in a pretty beneficial position as well without Beal and Kuzma. But we're not getting the same value we were earlier. So, like I said, a game that could be wild if the injury news breaks the right way. Would be interested in seeing what the starting lineup looks like. Could Anthony Gill get a little bit more run? But in general, if everything stays the same, I like Porzingis, I like Avdija. Hoping we get a little bit of injury news so I can force some exposure to Wright, take some shots on Kispert and Goodwin, are guys that I'll probably feel the most comfortable with. Next up, we have the lowest game total on the slate. The Heat are basically healthy at this point. I know Kyle Lowry's questionable. That's impactful from a minutes perspective. Uh, of course, if he's out, that is a boost to some of the guards, but I still don't like this game environment too much. I'll probably take a shot on hopefully like maybe like a low owned Strus or Martin. I'll need to look a little bit closer at that if Kyle Lowry ends up not playing. If he does play, I don't have a lot of interest in this team really at all. Jimmy Butler is really the only viable play in my opinion, and that's still a pretty thin play in my mind. A lot of the reasoning is because the game is low. The matchup against the Raptors is not ideal. They're a pretty good defense. Not a lot of things looking great for the Heat, but we've seen Jimmy Butler still have ceiling performances in these kind of game environments, so that's the only reason why he's even a little bit on my radar. The Raptors are always a team that I'm thinking about. Um, we're waiting on the sim model to update. It'll be good by the time we get to the pre-lock show, but I want to see what it thinks about Pascal Siakam because that 9,200 price tag is worrying me a little bit. But if the sim model's interested in him, I'm still open to it. Jakob Poeltl didn't come through for us last time. This is a tough matchup against Bam. 7K. It still has me a little enticed. And then Gary Trent Jr. being questionable is really the main driver for me here on how open I'll be to guys like Scotty Barnes and Fred VanVleet. If he's out, I'm more interested in taking shots on him. If he's in, I'm less interested. Pretty much that simple. And I'll let the domination station kind of control a lot as well with this situation. But lowest game total, automatically not one that I'm super excited about. Next up, we have the opposite situation. We have the highest game total on the slate, Cleveland Cavs against the Atlanta Hawks. The Cleveland Cavaliers have Jared Allen listed as questionable. We know how big of a deal that is. We have Isaac Okoro listed as questionable. That can be pretty impactful as well. Dean Wade is doubtful. Nato and Danny Green have been out for a while, so none of that matters too much. We know when Jared Allen is out, the two guys that see an increase in usage are Darius Garland and Lamar Stevens. What I really care about here, though, is Darius Garland. We've been on the train for a while. If Jared Allen is out, I'm automatically more interested. Garland's already projecting decently for this slate, so I have a feeling he'll be relatively popular. Again, this is also the game with the highest game total on the slate, so a lot of things kind of looking like it could be a good spot for Darius Garland, only 7,400. But if Jared Allen is out, that's what's really going to force me to be a bit more interested in potentially making Garland a leverage play, no matter what his ownership is. Peter, what's up, man? Good to see you. Thomas Dye, what's up? Hope all's going well, man. Hope today's a little bit better than yesterday. All right. So, yeah, I like the Cavs tonight. Fine. I think Donovan Mitchell, I think people are going to kind of spread their exposure to like the top pay up options on the slate. But I think most people are going to kind of build around Donovan Mitchell tonight. I think he'll be pretty chalky. We're still waiting on ownership, so we'll see if that happens to be the case. assuming he's going to be chalky, I'm not going to force exposure to him tonight. I think this is a great matchup against a really bad Hawks defense. But I'll kind of just let the domination station give me however much exposure it feels is appropriate, while I prefer to target some of the lower owned guys on this slate. Mobley is definitely viable as well in this spot, especially if Jared Allen is out. They'll just kind of need him to take on that big presence a bit more. He doesn't really see a ton of increasing usage when Allen is out, but we've seen him still have strong performances in those spots. Karis LeVert has had some strong performances as well. I think he's more so in play if he starts and or if Okoro is out. So yeah, pretty interesting team game environment. I like it. The Hawks, you guys know I have a little bit of bias against the Hawks. I'm never the biggest fan of them. And part of it is because they've been so healthy for a while now. And it's just, I don't love playing healthy teams, but kind of like the Kings, they don't play a lot of defense. And so their game environments tend to be pretty beneficial. And so for that reason, Trae Young, who has been in great form, should be pretty popular on this slate. I think he should have some decent ownership, and kind of like my thought process with Donovan Mitchell, totally fine having Trae Young. Think he's a great lineup filler, but when I'm utilizing the domination station, I'm going to prioritize the lower owned guys, and however much Trae Young I get or Donovan Mitchell exposure I get, that's great. DeJounte Murray, I kind of want to see what the sim model thinks about him before I kind of have a firm opinion on him, but he's on my radar. Clint Capella makes a lot of sense tonight, especially if Jared Allen is out. The Cleveland Cavaliers struggle defensively without Jared Allen. And so Clint Capella, if Jared Allen is out for the Cavs, increases in the likelihood of him being a leverage play for me tonight, especially if his ownership is relatively low. The rest of these guys split too many minutes for me to care too much. If I get a little bit of exposure, I'm fine with it, but I doubt I'll have more than 15% to the rest of the crew down there. Next up, we have the Charlotte Hornets, who are, once again, per usual, in a relatively large spread. Largest spread is actually this Wizards game, which makes sense without Bradley Beal and Kuzma. But after that, we have the Hornets. So for the Hornets, they're missing quite a few guys. Terry Rozier is out. We know how big of a presence he has. Kelly Oubre is questionable. That will matter a lot if he ends up being out. And then Gordon Hayward is doubtful. Mark Williams will also not be playing, so that should stabilize the center position a little bit. I know their coach said that he was comfortable kind of using a 3-man rotation at the bigs at the 5. So hopefully with Mark Williams not playing, that stabilizes minutes for Nick Richards, which makes him look like a pretty strong value play for us on this slate. We've also been comfortable playing bigs against the Thunder, so a pretty ideal game environment for him. We'll talk about the Hornets in a bit more detail, but let's say, what's up, Michael Ortiz? Good to see you. Good morning. I hope things are going well for you too, man. Dave, thanks, man. Yeah, do hit the like, share, and subscribe button. I always appreciate the support, guys, and that helps show all the big bosses that people are still tuning in to DFS stuff. So let's look at this a little bit closer. So Dennis Smith Jr. once again is in a prime spot against a bad Thunder team. He's priced a bit more efficiently, so we don't have him as like an extreme value play like we have before in the past. But I like this spot for him. As long as we don't get more value or better value in like the Wizards game, I think the Hornet Guards are guys I'm willing to take shots on. So Dennis Smith Jr. is on my radar. Spy's on my radar. We know he can be a little bit of a pain point at times. Not the highest usage guy, but still a soft matchup, so I'm willing to go there, especially if Kelly Oubre ends up being out. That would be awesome. Who else? PJ Washington is probably, I'm hoping he's low owned. Like, I am really hoping he's low owned. Because if he is, then he's on my radar as a leverage play, but we just have to wait and see where ownership falls for him. We've seen it throughout this season, ever since the Plumlee trade went off. Like, PJ Washington has really been more involved on offense and defense, and so he's on my radar for that reason. So yeah, I like the Hornets tonight. I think this is a good spot for them. Now this Thunder spread of 10.5 points makes me think that SGA is probably going to play tonight, but he's currently listed as questionable. If he's out, once again, we will have a few guard options. We know that the guard options for the Thunder can be a bit volatile, but they have a soft matchup against this Hornets team. So for me, that makes them viable. If SGA plays, SGA is really the main guy that's on my radar. I'm also comfortable with the Jalen Williams brothers. They're not really brothers, but I'm also comfortable playing bigs against the Hornets, and they both kind of fit that category for me. If SGA ends up being ruled out, I am much more interested in taking shots on guys like Giddey, Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, all just become more viable for me on this slate. I think those are like the main pieces for me. Obviously, I prefer Jalen Williams, the ALEN, over the JAYLIN Williams. So, yeah, I like these guys a decent bit tonight. Like them even more if SGA ends up being ruled out, but that spread makes me feel like he's probably going to play tonight. Next up, we have the Orlando Magic. Again, full transparency. I have bias against this team. I don't like playing the Magic. Just not fun to me. Is actually just the truest of truths. They're also tend to be relatively healthy. If they're extremely low owned, they become much more interesting to me on the slate. The Grizzlies have just been a better defense here as of late. So not really a particular spot where I want to force and target um, guys from them. But with Steven Adams still not playing for the Grizzlies, I am more open to taking shots on guys like Wendell Carter Jr. and or Franz Wagner. Paolo, I understand playing Paolo here. If he's extremely low owned, I'm open to it, but I would prefer to pay down a little bit and focus on Carter Jr. and Franz Wagner. Outside of that, we know like Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz have ceiling for days. I'll kind of wait and see what the sim model thinks about them before I kind of have a final judgment. But as of right now, I'm not super impressed with it. And then moving to the Grizzlies, Ja Morant's listed as doubtful. He's probably not going to play tonight. Everyone will have a lot of exposure to the Grizzlies tonight. I plan on being over the field on them as well. Tyus Jones is a fantastic value play tonight. 5,300 is just too cheap for him with the role he plays on this team when Ja's out. Same with Jaren Jackson Jr. And then Desmond Bane is fine for me as well too. So I plan on having a lot of exposure to all three of them. We should see Luke Kennard or Santi Aldama see a bit more run with Ja Morant out too. So definitely potentially more interesting. But as of right now, I don't have a strong enough take on either of them to really kind of give them the stamp of approval. But we'll see by the pre-lock show what we're actually doing there. Dylan Brooks is always tempting to me. We had him as a leverage play once and it worked out and I've never gone back since. I doubt this is the right spot for that, but I'm always thinking about it. But in general, I like this team. I'm prioritizing Jaren Jackson, Bane, and Tyus Jones, like most people are, but I'm still thinking about ways that we can get a little bit sneaky here with maybe like an Aldama or a Kennard or a Brooks. Those three guys are guys I just want to look a little bit closer at. And I feel like Tillman's priced appropriately. If I get some, I'm okay with it, but I'm not planning on forcing exposure to him. Last game on the slate, guys. We have the Pelicans against the Warriors. The Pelicans are pretty healthy. So the thing that they have going for them is a soft matchup. I'm very interested in seeing where ownership lies for these guys tonight, just because this is a back-to-back. The matchup's nice once again. They did blow the team out yesterday, so maybe they had a little bit more rest, but uh, more so than anything, I just care about ownership. If I want exposure to Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and Joe Val tonight, even potentially Trey Murphy. But I just kind of want to see where ownership falls, because if they're going to be very chalky, then I'll probably just be fine being around field weight. But if I think they're under owned, then they'll be easy leverage plays for me. So just interested in seeing where ownership falls. Outside of that, I'm not really trying to take shots on these guys down here. We have better value on this slate, and hopefully we have more that will open up. So just doesn't feel super necessary. And then for the Warriors, assuming Curry's low owned, he'll probably be an easy leverage play tonight. I think Jordan Poole at 5,900 is starting to look a little bit interesting. Looks like Looney is projecting pretty well. I'm not against it, but I don't plan on having a ton of exposure to him. Probably not more than whatever his projected ownership is. Not a team I love tonight, to be honest, but I'm just okay with attacking them if they happen to be a little bit low owned. So that's pretty much my thought process. I am really prioritizing the Memphis Grizzlies tonight, the Hornets. Hopefully we get some value from the Wizards game. Those 3-game environments are just really, really nice. And then hopefully we can have some decent leverage plays from, and then of course, like a lot of our lines will revolve around like the Cavs and Atlanta game. Then hopefully we can get some low ownership on the Pelicans, some of the Warriors guys, the Raptors, and then maybe a little bit of Tatum to mix things up in there. So that's how I'm treating this slate. I appreciate you all for sticking around with me. I look forward to seeing you all on the pre-lock show, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. And there won't be a show on Friday because I have some work stuff to do. So appreciate you all. Look forward to seeing you all later. If not later, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Bye, guys.